Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Scott and this is the You Run podcast. We are your home for horror and for true crime. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you know when we do brand new videos. Today we are talking about the 1960s. So the 1960s for horror was a very strange time. We'd had all of the Universal monsters and that had kind of run its course and almost come to an end. And we had sort of this surge of Hammer horror movies in the 50s, and they too had kind of run their course and audiences were looking for something new. And this put studios in a position where they had to find something very different. And the 60s is almost a time of experimentation, very similar to the 80s, but 20 years earlier. So today we're going to take you through my favorite movies from the 1960s. I'm going to start things off with The House of Usher. The House of Usher is a film adaptation of the short story by Edgar Allan Poe, Fall of the House of Usher. I'm pretty sure you all remember the huge Mike Flanagan show from last year. That's also an adaptation of exactly the same story. The film follows a cursed family and Philip Withrott's goal to marry one of the family members, Madeline. This is strongly opposed by Madeline's brother, who insists that the curse must end and there could be no more children born into this family. This is an excellent gothic horror, and it also stars one of the most iconic horror legends of all time, Vincent Price. The next movie up on my list is also another book adaptation. This time it is The Birds. The Birds is an adaptation of the book of the same name by Daphne du Maurier. It's directed by Alfred Hitchcock and follows the story of Melanie, who's a San Francisco socialite who, to be honest, is not the nicest of people. I don't think she's not a character you fall in love with, let's put it that way. And it follows her struggles and she tries to survive as there's an unexplained bird attack plagues the area. Now, despite this being the follow-up for Psycho, it initially received very mixed response on its release. Over time, though, this has widely become recognised as one of the greatest horror scripts of all time. So I guess there's hope for films like Birdemic. No, probably not. There's no hope for that film. Anyway, moving on. Night of the Living Dead. Regulars to this channel will know that I am not the zombie guy. That's not me. But this movie is special. Night of the Living Dead from 1968 is iconic in every possible way, from the scene where you get
"They're coming to get you, Barbara,"
through to the moments where the 7 strangers are stuck in the house and they're fighting to survive. This film is absolute perfection. And it was actually rewatching this movie that I realized why I'm not a huge fan of this genre as a whole. So this film, directed by George A. Romero, godfather of zombie movies, this film created all of the tropes that are now massively overused within the subgenre. So it's got everything from the we need to get supplies, we need to get medical equipment, we need to get somewhere safe, all of these things that have just become commonplace. This done it first, and if I'm honest, this movie done it better. And every movie that's come after is a carbon copy wannabe version of Night of the Living Dead, and I'm including George A. Romero's own remakes and reworks and sequels to this property. This is the best it ever got for me, and I absolutely love it. Cape Fear. Not the one from the 80s, the original Cape Fear that came out in 1962. So this follows a convicted criminal. He's a convicted rapist. He's a really bad guy called Max Cady. Now, Max Cady's been let out of jail after serving his 8 years, and he's out for revenge, and he's going after the lawyer that sent him to prison and the lawyer's family. This is a revenge story that sees him track them down, threaten the family, and has one of the best climaxes to a movie in this time period. I don't want to give too much away on this because this is a movie I feel doesn't get recognized in as many lists as it should. And when people do videos like this, it never comes up. And I really want you to go and watch this film. It's full of tension and some incredible performances. So check out Cape Fear. You saw it in the thumbnail. You knew it was going to be here. Let's talk about it. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho from 1960. This is universally accepted as Alfred Hitchcock's Best work. It follows Marion Crane as she goes on the run after robbing her employer. And I still don't understand why everyone seems to think Marion Crane is the good guy. She's not. She's a criminal. Not quite as bad as Norman Bates, who she comes to find, but she is still a heartless criminal who stole all of her boss's money and skipped town. Now, she finds shelter in the Bates Motel and probably wish she doesn't when she comes across Norman Bates, who, let's say, he's got some serious mummy issues. This film is not one of my overall favorites from the 60s. I like this film, but it doesn't sit up there. It's not one that's very rewatchable for me. But that being said, I can't help but marvel at the wonderful performances, the incredible cinematography, the shower scene, and the closing monologue of this movie are Oscar worthy on their own. This is a film that will be studied and is studied by film students for decades to come. And I fully appreciate and understand why. And yeah, if you've not seen Psycho, it is a cinematic marvel. Now, last October on the You Run podcast horror movie review that I host with Mark, we reviewed Little Shop of Horrors, you know, the one from the 80s with Rick Moranis and Audrey too, and the whole singing, dancing thing. And when we done that, he brought up that that was a remake of the Little Shop of Horrors. And I didn't know it existed. So I had to go and seek it out when I was putting this video together. And I didn't expect it to appear in this list, but it does. It is fabulous. Now, I don't need to explain the story of Little Shop of Horrors. It is ingrained in pop culture. Everyone from 10 to 110 knows it's all about a homicidal killer plant that likes to eat people. So all I'm going to say is go and seek this out. Go and have a look at an incredibly young Jack Nicholson, and also have a look at the visual effects they used in this movie to create Audrey and Audrey Jr. versus what they've done in 1986 for Audrey 2. And just come back and let me know in the comments what you think, because both of those things, the young Jack Nicholson and the visual effects in this movie, are something to be absolutely marveled at. Now, no horror list of mine is complete until I stick a vampire on it. I'm going to be honest, it was slim pickings for vampires in the 60s. There were not a huge amount of them, but there was one that managed to just scrape on my list, and that is Dracula, Prince of Darkness. This adaptation of Dracula sees Christopher Lee, who was great, but he was incredibly unhappy with the script that Hammer Horror had given him, so much so that he refused to say any single line in the script. Instead, he just hissed every now and then when he felt it was appropriate. This is the second film to star Christopher Lee as Dracula, the first being Horror of Dracula in 1958. But for me, I can't recommend this film enough. I really enjoy this movie, even though I know it's not as good as some of the others. Christopher Lee is outstanding. And if you want a good sort of Hammer horror 60s coming to the end of that genre film, this is the one for you. Now, the final film on my list is again a film that rarely appears, and I don't know why. It doesn't appear in lists for best of the 60s. It doesn't appear in people's best sci-fi movies. They tend to be Alien or Aliens and all sorts of others. But this one is almost like it's been forgotten. Has it been so long that people have forgotten it? So if that's the case, I'm bringing it up again. And that is 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is one of the most impressive film achievements of the 1960s, as far as I'm concerned. It hasn't dated a bit. You can watch this today, and it is as relevant and as effective as it was when it was released in 1968. There is so much in this that is possibly more relevant now than it was when it released, and that is incredible. So the film is all about an AI. Well, it's not. They find an object floating in space, and we send a team up to go and investigate. And on the ship that they're on, there is a computer called HAL 9000. This is probably the earliest you've seen in a movie that AI exists. And this robot helps and assists them. Well, he's meant to. It is the original AI gone wrong story, and they do it perfectly. Again, I don't want to give too much away for this movie because I think there's a lot of younger audience that we have on this channel that definitely won't have seen it. If you like AI gone bad movies. This is 100% for you. Don't go, oh, it's from the 60s, it's really old. It looks fabulous. It's beautifully shot. It's beautifully lit. It looks as good today as it did then. And it also is one of the best sci-fi horror movies ever made. So much so that had this not happened, we would not have the sci-fi subgenre of horror, because I think this is the inspiration for everything that come after. Alien, you can see the inspiration they took and the things they drew from this movie and every other sci-fi horror since. So for me, one of my favorites of all time is 2001: A Space Odyssey. So there you have it. That's my small handful of my favorite movies from the 60s. I don't have a lot because I wasn't born. I know I look like I was, but I wasn't. I wasn't born until the 80s. So my 60s journey is still happening. I'm still going back and watching movies from this time period. And if I find enough that I think are great, I'll come back and do another video. Let me know in the comments if there's any that I should go and watch. Because as I say, I'm only exploring movies from the 60s now. So if there's something that you know is fabulous and it should be on this list, stick it in the comment and I'm going to go and watch that and I'll come back and report. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Make sure you go and check out some of the other videos on the channel as well. We've got most anticipated horror movies of 2025. We've got all the episodes of You Run Podcast Horror Movie Review, all the episodes of You Run Podcast True Crime. There is literally something here for everyone every day of the week. Until I catch you next time, have a wonderful week and I'll see you all soon. Bye, guys.